T62s on 30 or 40. Put it up to 20. So welcome back to the PT76. It's been quite some time since we've been able to work on this project. The reason being is the last time we tried to run the engine, the fuel pump and the injectors, they were just out, and we had to go through our connections in Europe to order in a new fuel pump. And those guys over there actually bench test the fuel pump and set all the injectors to the fuel pump and the application of whichever engine it will go in. Bearing in mind that these Russian engines don't just go in tanks, they go in trains and tractors and other commercial equipment. So even though the same engine is in other equipment, each piece of equipment it's configured slightly differently. So those guys tune that thing into specifically for a PT76. So we're back at it and it's quite exciting. We do not have the electric starter motor still, unfortunately, but the good part about the Russian vehicles, you can start with air and electric. So today we're going to be starting with the air. And a few of the tests that we're going to run, once the engine is actually running, we're going to check for basically that each cylinder is actually firing. We're going to see if the generator on this side is functional. So we're going to put a voltmeter to it and check that it's actually charging. We're going to check for oil pressure and basically work on timing. The fuel pump actually times itself to the engine. So for every revolution the engine does, this does two laps. So you can actually disconnect that coupler and time it. So one of the steps we do when tuning the engine is if it doesn't sound right or it's producing too much smoke, you advance or retard the coupler for the fuel pump. So that's another process that we're going to do. And then we run the engine out of the tank like this, predominantly for ease to work on, but mainly to check for leaks. Because once you install this thing, the amount of man hours it takes to install, if you then find a leak, it's just a complete pain in the ass. So running it out like this, it helps us identify those leaks and change any gaskets or washers we need to before we put it into the tank. So we'll go through some of the components real quick. Basically everything we have set up here happens inside the tank, and the only thing we don't have hooked up today is coolant, but we'll go through that in our engine walk around video. But today we have set up our electric oil prime pump, and we just run this off a battery, and then the tank's oil pressure goes into the oil pressure line here. We've just adapted a gauge, so this would normally be up on the driver's instrument panel. We've put the gauge right up to the pressure line. So we're going to do a pre-oiler prime, make sure we have pressure, and then we're going to pull all these inspection covers and make sure the oil is coming out of each cam at the top. From there we have our fuel prime, so we're running fuel from the bucket over here, and we have fresh diesel in there. It's pulling right out of that. And then this is the fuel prime pump, and this is normally up near the driver, so if the vehicle hasn't run, for overnight, he'll prime the fuel each time, and that'll get fresh fuel into the tank. So we have that set up externally. And then all of the Russian tanks, they have what's called a dry sump, meaning the majority of the oil is not stored in the engine. It's held in an external tank, and then it gets pulled out of the external tank into the engine. So the advantage of a system like this is that the reserve tank can hold a lot of oil compared to if it was a sealed unit. The engine has a limited amount of oil. So in the Russian tanks there is no dipstick on the engine. The dipstick to check your oil level is done from the reserve tank. Now all we've done is we've rigged up a drum with an outline and a return line, just like it would have in the tank. So this is our test stand, and then obviously once we're done, we can just shut these off and keep the oil in here, and that way there's only a minimum amount of oil in the engine itself when we go to install it in the tank. So the advantage of the reserve, or the holding cell, is that if you do happen to spring a slow leak, you got a lot of oil to burn through on the road before you reach zero. So that's one advantage to that. And then, like I said, the only thing we do not have rigged up is the cooling system, but this is the water pump. And once the radiator is hooked up, then we'll test for leaks. But in this case, the entire cooling system is brand new. We have a custom-made radiator, all new hoses, so I'm not too worried about leaks on the cooling side of that. So as I mentioned, we don't have our electric starter motor, but we do have air. So here we just have compressed nitrogen, and we've adapted a hose, and we run it directly into the air start coupler. So the way this works is it's timed as well. It just shoots air individually into each piston to roll the engine. So watch us now, we'll go through our pre-steps, and then we'll see if we can get this engine to run. Go ahead. Do it from the top. Good. You ready? Ready. Engage, trimmer. Okay, go over to the top. This right here, right? Yeah, look down. Are you ready? Ready. See the oil? Yep. Okay. Alright. Ready? Yep, go ahead. Yep. Alright, so we got no air in there. Alright. Yeah, and we'll just wait for those guys. Alright. Yeah. What's wrong? Do it off the bit.
Where's it coming from? It's coming out of the backside. Or
Let's see if it goes at all. No brake window this time.
Okay.
Sorry. Yeah, that's good. Yep. Yep. Yeah, put it up. From memory, the T62 is on 30 or 40. Put it up to 20.
Okay. See all this.
Okay. Yep. Okay. Yep.
All right, we're at about 35 right now. You want me to bring him back a tooth?
Let's see if there's any changes at 35.
All right. Let me put snap ring in it.
Ready?
That was beautiful.
Yeah,
Good job,
that's
mate.
awesome.
God.
We don't know when the last
job,
time
fit,
this
mate.
ran, and last time we tried it, we had that bad fuel pump. So we got our fuel pump from Poland, and yeah, this is good. You'll see all that oil up in here. Look at that. Yeah, she's full of oil. It's got good pressure. Yeah. Yeah, we'll finish our coffee and then.
You ready?
Yep, hit it.
That was the sound of victory.